You have stood in doorways your entire life, not because you cannot decide whether to enter or leave, but because something in you knows that your place is the doorway itself. Others pass through. They cross into new friendships, new groups, new versions of belonging, and they do not look back. You remain, holding the threshold open, watching both sides and belonging fully to neither. And no one has ever told you why. Welcome to Power and Myth. What you've been experiencing is not indecision. It is not social awkwardness dressed up in introversion. It is one of the oldest roles in human consciousness, and it has a name, the guardian of thresholds. In every mythology, in every tradition that understood the architecture of the psyche, there stands a figure at the boundary between worlds, not inside, not outside, between. The ferryman at the river's edge, the gatekeeper at the temple door, the one who sees both the world of the living and the world of the dead and belongs to neither. Jung identified this as an archetypal pattern embedded in the collective unconscious, a pattern that certain people do not simply study or admire, they inhabit it. And if you are an INFJ, there is a very real chance you have been living inside this archetype without ever realizing it had a name. Think about how you exist in groups. You are present, but you are never fully absorbed. There is always a part of you that remains on the outside, watching. Not from judgment, from structure. You cannot dissolve into collective energy the way others can because something in your cognitive architecture keeps you positioned at the edge. You are the one who notices when someone at the gathering is quietly falling apart, whilst everyone else is laughing. You are the one who sees the unspoken tension between two people before they do. You are the one others approach afterwards in private to say the things they could not say in the room. This is not a social skill. This is threshold consciousness. You perceive what is happening on both sides of every divide because you are standing in the space between them. And this is the shadow side that INFJs rarely speak of. The Guardian does not simply choose to stand between worlds. The Guardian cannot leave the threshold. This is the part that aches. You watch others cross into deep belonging, into effortless intimacy, into the warm interior of groups that welcome them without reservation. And you hold the door for them, you help them cross. You see exactly what they need to hear to step forward. But when the crossing is complete, you remain where you were, still at the edge, still between. The seer's curse is to know and not be believed. The Guardian's curse is to facilitate crossings you yourself can never make. Picture this. You have a friend who is struggling. You can see precisely what they need. Not vaguely. Precisely. You know the conversation that would unlock something in them, the truth they are avoiding, the permission they need but cannot give themselves. And so you become the threshold for them. You hold the space. You ask the question no one else would ask. You sit with them in the unbearable territory between who they have been and who they are becoming. They cross. They transform. They thank you, perhaps. And then they walk into their new life. And you go home alone, carrying the emotional residue of a passage you midwifed but did not experience. This is the Guardian's work. Sacred, exhausting, and almost entirely invisible. Jung wrote that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But the Guardian's transformation is different. It is not the transformation of crossing, it is the transformation of remaining. You are changed not by what you enter, but by what you witness. Every threshold you hold, every passage you facilitate, every boundary you stand upon leaves its residue in you. You become layered with the crossings of others. And this is why INFJs carry a weight that seems disproportionate to their own lived experience. You are carrying the accumulated gravity of every threshold you have ever held open for someone else. What makes this genuinely difficult is not what you might expect. It is not the loneliness, though that is real. It is the invisibility. The Guardian's work unfolds in spaces others do not even recognize as such. The conversation at the edge of the party, the silence that holds someone together when words would break them. The intuitive knowing that someone needs to leave, needs to stay, needs to hear one specific truth spoken without flinching. This work has no title, no recognition, no applause. The people you help often do not know they have been helped. They feel that something shifted, they crossed a threshold, and they are not sure how, but you know. You were the door. There is a deeper pattern here, and it connects to what Jung called Individuation, the lifelong work of becoming whole. For most people, individuation involves crossing thresholds and leaving the familiar, entering the unknown and integrating the shadow. But for the Guardian, individuation takes a different form. Your work is not to cross. Your work is to become conscious of where you stand, to recognize that the threshold is not a failure of belonging. It is your place of power, the moment you stop trying to cross into a world that was never meant to hold you, and instead turn your full attention to the extraordinary vantage point you already occupy, everything changes. Because here is what most people never understand about this. The Guardian sees what no one else can see. Standing between worlds is not a limitation. It is the only position from which both worlds become visible simultaneously. You see the conscious and the unconscious, the spoken and the unspoken, the surface and the depth. This is why people come to you with their impossible questions, not because you are wise, though you may be, but because you are standing in the only place from which the answer is visible. You are positioned at the exact point where two realities overlap, and that overlap is where truth lives. This is introverted intuition operating at its highest expression, not as a personality quirk or cognitive preference, but as a threshold perception. Your mind does not process the world from within a single framework. It stands between frameworks, perceiving the patterns that connect them. What seems like prophecy, what feels like knowing things before they happen, is actually the natural consequence of occupying liminal space. When you stand between worlds, you see the currents that flow between them. You see where they converge. You see what is coming before it arrives because you are standing at the point of arrival. The ancient traditions understood this. The shaman stood between the human world and the spirit world. The priestess stood between the sacred and the profane. The hermit stood between society and wilderness. These were not people who failed to belong. They were people whose belonging was to the threshold itself, and their communities needed them precisely because they refused to cross fully into either world. The Guardian's power is not diminished by standing between. It is constituted by it. Remove the Guardian from the threshold, and you do not free them. You destroy the very thing that makes them irreplaceable. So here is the transformation the Guardian must make, not from the edge to the center. That crossing is not yours. Your transformation is from an unconscious Guardian to a conscious one, from someone who stands between worlds and aches for belonging, to someone who stands between worlds and knows that this is where they were always meant to be. You are not failing to enter. You are holding the space that makes entry possible for others. You are not excluded from belonging. You are performing the deepest form of it, a belonging so fundamental that it does not require being inside. It requires being exactly where you are. You are the one who stands at the threshold. You are the one who sees both sides. You are the one who holds the door for crossings that others do not even know are happening. And the world needs you precisely where you are. Not inside, not outside, between, where you have always been. If something in this video named a role you have been carrying without words, please tell me in the comments. Are you the Guardian? Have you spent your life holding thresholds open for others whilst wondering why you could never walk through yourself? Subscribe if you want to keep exploring this territory. You are part of something here at Power and Myth, a gathering of those who have always known they were standing between worlds. Until next time, find your power, know your myth.